Hello, I'm Dramona. Let's get to the story. There is a section of Dramadonia that is very reserved. The people there more or less stick to themselves, resolve their own issues, and aren't very welcoming of outsiders. Let's just say they have very strict rules and do not waver on how they think things should be done. There is a well in their town which they say is the pinnacle of their community due to it possessing healing powers. Myuu lived there with her parents and hated every minute of it. She could hardly wait for the day to come when she'd raised enough money from her job at the diner and move away from there. She vowed she would never look back. It was totally unacceptable to date or marry someone from the outside, but Myuu just could not see herself falling in love with anyone there. They were just not to her liking, so she kept to herself and politely declined any advances made towards her. While strolling to work one day, a stranger approached her asking for directions. He literally had no clue where he was and had been driving around in circles since the GPS system in his car was busted and he'd forgotten to bring his phone. She thought he was quite handsome. He told her his name was Charles and asked if he could use her phone to make a quick call, so she allowed him to do so. She gave him the directions he needed, and they both went on their merry way. That night, as she was watching videos on her phone, she received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Charles. It turns out he'd called his cell phone from hers that day, so he could get her number. She smiled and asked him a little about himself, which turned into a very lengthy conversation. Charles lived in the next town just about 20 minutes away. He was driving around that day just for fun and ended up there. Over the next 2 weeks, Charles and Myuu spent a lot of time talking to and messaging each other every single day. One day, Charles showed up just as Myuu was about to leave work and offered to take her home. On his way to her house, he asked if she would like to go on a date with him sometime, to which Myuu responded she would. As you can well imagine, her parents and community as a whole were not too happy when she showed up in this stranger's car. And over the next few weeks, their outrage grew. They began dating. Neither Myuu nor Charles paid them much attention. They were both very happy and had decided they were not going to allow the opinion of others to get in the way of their happiness. Each year, the town held a week-long celebration in honor of Lady Gotham. It was said she protected their town from bandits who would go from place to place on raiding and killing sprees. They say she accomplished this with the help of witchcraft back in the early 1900s and still protects them to this day. It is also believed that a large portion of their residents are her descendants. Myuu decided to invite Charles to the opening ceremony, and they also made plans for him to attend some of the festivities. Upon their arrival, it was apparent they were not welcome there, but they ignored all the dirty looks and snide comments since they were determined to have a good time. They enjoyed a wonderful day together. Charles dropped Myuu home that night, and they said their goodbyes. When Myuu awoke the next morning, she was told Charles had been involved in a car accident on his way home that night and was pronounced dead at the scene. Myuu was devastated. She was also told arrangements had been made for her to marry Simeon in 2 weeks' time, and leaving town was not an option for her unless she wished to be reunited with Charles. The festivities continued, and for the next few days, life went on for everyone there as usual. Everyone, that is, except Maya. On the last day of their celebration, everyone gathered at the well around noon to drink healing water and receive their yearly blessing. By that night, many were dead or hospitalized in critical condition. Overcome with grief, anguish, and the constant feeling of helplessness, Maya had gone into the woods each day and gathered as many of the most poisonous plants in the area as she could find. She then extracted their juices and poured it into the well each night. On the final day of the celebration, Maya consumed as much of the poison as she could. Then she threw herself and the rest of the poison into the well, where she died shortly after. Since that day, moans can be heard coming from the well. Even in death, poor Maya never got to leave.